Coming soon to BBC Two and iPlayer.
This is BBC One in the North East and Cumbria. Now the BBC News with Clive, Myrie and Alison Freeman at 1 o'clock.
Today at 1, trials of a possible life-changing blood test that could help thousands of cancer patients. It would mean no more potentially debilitating chemotherapy to check if surgery has removed the tumour.
So to suddenly hear that you aren't going to need it is just unbelievable.
Trials of the test are now underway across the UK. Also this lunchtime, 2 men have been shot dead in Cambridgeshire in what police say were targeted attacks. 3 people have been arrested. Fears the government won't meet carbon reduction commitments made in the run-up to the UN climate conference in Glasgow. Prosecutors are to decide whether the shooting death of Chris Kaba by a Met police officer was unlawful. And honouring a 100-year-old war veteran, helping children read, he's now received a British Empire Medal.
Coming up on Look North, fears over a lack of dentists as Bupa announces closures of practices. And the village swapping its traditional outdoor lights to become dark skies friendly.
Good afternoon. There's news today of a potentially life-changing blood test that could affect and help thousands of cancer patients. The simple procedure detects if bowel cancer surgery has been successful in removing tumours, saving patients from having to undergo chemotherapy. A UK-wide trial of the test is now underway, led by the Royal Marsden Hospital in London, following promising results in Australia. Our medical editor, Fergus Walsh, has our top story.
The C word is a big word to live with.
It's a year since Ben Cook was diagnosed with bowel cancer.
I haven't taken a single day off work, which has been incredible.
After successful surgery, patients like Ben are usually offered intravenous chemotherapy to mop up any cancer cells that might be remaining. But a new type of blood test showed he was cancer-free.
Right, what should we do? Big, enormous Chelsea blow dryer.
So Ben, who runs this hair salon in Chelsea, was spared the toxic side effects, which can include nerve damage to the hands and feet.
Work for me is my therapy as such. Like, I love going to work. I love my job. I'm very lucky to do what I do. And if I'd have had the intravenous, I'd feel like I wouldn't have been able to have carried on. But the fact that I didn't have any tingling or anything in my hands has just been an absolute blessing.
Ben has regular checkups at the Royal Marsden, which is leading a trial of the blood test across dozens of hospitals.
Your cancer was diagnosed in the cecum, in the right colon.
The results could transform the way thousands of bowel cancer patients are treated in the UK every year.
I hope through this trial that we generate the evidence to show that this technology, liquid biopsies, can be used to spare patients with stage 3 bowel cancer unnecessary chemotherapy after their bowel cancer surgery, because they don't need it.
Take a deep breath in, sharp scratch.
So how can a blood test tell if a patient like Ben is free of cancer? It looks for tiny fragments of tumour DNA circulating in the bloodstream. If there's none present, there's a low risk the cancer will return. These blood tests, or liquid biopsies, are part of a revolution in the diagnosis and monitoring of cancer. They're being trialled in the UK across lung, breast, as well as bowel cancer, and can detect minute fragments of tumour DNA months, even years before they'd show up on a scan. After she had bowel cancer surgery, artist Suzanne Winter was also spared chemotherapy as a result of the blood test.
I just feel incredibly lucky. I know how toxic it is. I know that I would feel terrible, and also your whole everything is you're getting ready for it. You're psyching yourself up for it. So to suddenly hear that you aren't going to need it is just unbelievable.
Chemotherapy still has a vital role in treating cancer, but if blood test trials are successful, it will mean a brighter future for thousands of patients every year, as well as saving the NHS money.
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Brighter future for patients, saving the NHS money. How significant really is this potential trial?
I think the word potential we've got to still use, Clive, because doctors say we need this study. It's going to take 3 years to show proof positive that you can actually withdraw a treatment that is known, chemotherapy, known to extend the survival of patients following bowel cancer surgery, but comes with often debilitating side effects. Now, all the signals look good. A study led by the University of Melbourne last year found that it nearly halved the number of patients requiring intravenous chemotherapy following bowel cancer surgery. So that would translate in the UK to many, many thousands of patients each year. In breast cancer, another study in Greece earlier this year found that it could detect, on the flip side, remnants of cancer which recurred 4 years before they'd show up on a scan. So it has really big implications.
Sure. OK, Fergus, thank you. Fergus Walsh, our medical editor there. There are fears the government won't meet its carbon reduction targets, part of commitments made in the run-up to the UN climate conference in Glasgow 2 years ago. It comes as the government unveils details of its climate strategy, showing how the UK will meet its goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050. That strategy suggests the government will only make progress towards its promised targets. Here's our climate editor, Justin Rowlatt.
The Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero was channeling his inner Churchill when he announced his new plan.
Today, with Putin weaponising energy across Europe, our energy security has become critical.
The plan gives more detail on how the government will cut emissions after it lost a legal challenge by activists last summer. It was Grant Shapps who decided to locate it to a World War II bunker and rebrand it as a battle for the country's energy security.
I think it's the flip side of the same coin. So as you get to more renewables, including nuclear, you actually do decarbonise the whole energy economy. So it's really two parts of the same thing.
The problem is the new report does not make clear whether the UK will meet the targets for carbon reductions it set itself before the global climate meeting in Glasgow back in 2020.
There are some weasel words. They don't say they're going to meet the target they set out with great fanfare at COP26. They said they were going to cut their emissions, UK emissions, by 68% by 2030 compared to 1990. All the document can say is they'll make some progress towards it.
The government told the BBC today it fully expects to meet the commitments it made to the UN to cut carbon. So what's in this new report? The focus will be boosting renewable energy, mostly offshore wind and solar power. But there'll also be more of this, nuclear power. Mr. Shapps says he wants a quarter of Britain's electricity to come from atomic energy in future. And there'll also be an effort to boost hydrogen production and technologies to capture and permanently store carbon dioxide emissions underground. There'll be some new money for electric vehicle chargers and to boost the heat pump industry in the UK. And the government says it will expand the effort to insulate drafty homes. The Green Party claimed today there were very few new policies in the document.
Well, the greenest thing about this document is the fact that it is full of recycled ideas, sometimes from literally years ago. This is a document that completely fails to rise to the challenge of this moment.
Mr. Shapps claims his new plan will drive down emissions, as well as cutting electricity prices and ensuring the UK isn't dependent on autocrats like President Putin for its energy. But don't hold your breath. He admits it will take a while before the new measures lower our bills. Justin Rowlatt, BBC News, Uxbridge.
2 men have been shot dead in 2 villages in Cambridgeshire in what police say were targeted attacks. 3 people have been arrested on suspicion of murder. Our reporter Louisa Pilbeam has the very latest.
It was here in this small Cambridgeshire village that gunshots were reported last night, and when police arrived they found a 32-year-old man dead inside one of the houses. Just over half an hour later, more reports of gunshots in nearby Sutton, where police found a 57-year-old man also dead from gunshot wounds.
I heard sort of two loud bangs, thought it was actually car doors right outside my house, and went outside and there was nobody there, which I thought was strange.
Quite worrying because obviously we never have anything happen down here, so it's quite a shock that something would happen in such a small place.
This is a quiet close where many families live. I've seen people taking their children to school today and heading off to work. But last night a frightening scene unfolded here and police told people to stay inside as a police helicopter circled overhead. A 27-year-old man and a 33-year-old woman were arrested in Cambridge and a 66-year-old man arrested in the Worcester area. Both deaths are being treated as murder and police say they are linked. Police also say the attacks are believed to be targeted and there is no wider risk to the general public. A heavy police presence has been at the scene all day as those who live here try to comprehend what happened. Louisa Pilbeam, BBC News.
The Common Standards Committee says the MP, Margaret Ferrier, should be suspended for 30 days for breaking COVID laws. Ms Ferrier admitted putting people at risk after speaking in a debate at Westminster, then travelling by train while infected with the coronavirus in September 2020. Well, our chief political correspondent Nick Eardley is at Westminster. Nick, Ms Ferrier, she's already received a community service order because of all this. Now the Commons could have a say.
It could indeed, Clive. You'll remember that September 2020 had significant COVID restrictions in place and Margaret Ferrier broke a lot of them. She had symptoms, she took a test in Glasgow, then decided to travel down to Parliament anyway. While she was here, she got a positive result and rather than self-isolating in London, she travelled back to Glasgow. Now, at the time, she lost the SNP whip. She's been sitting as an independent since. She also ended up pleading guilty in a Scottish court, which led to that community service you were just talking about. But now she faces the very real prospect of losing her seat as well. This committee has said that she should be suspended for 30 days. If MPs back that, and she can still appeal, but if MPs back that in the wider Commons chamber, then it would trigger a process where if 10% of the electorate in her constituency sign a petition, there would be a by-election. Now that by-election would be a really important one if it happens. Rutherglen and Hamilton West is a key target seat for the Labour Party. The SNP would be really keen to hang on to it. So it could be an early test of the new SNP leader, Humza Yousaf.
OK, Nick, thank you for that. Nick Eardley there at Westminster. The government says a rise in the state pension age to 68 won't be brought forward just yet. The Work and Pensions Secretary Mel Stride told MPs in the Commons that now is not the time to make the change. A decision is now expected in 2026 after the next general election. The police watchdog has passed a file of evidence to prosecutors to decide whether a Metropolitan Police officer should be charged over the fatal shooting of a black man last September in South London. Chris Kaba, who was 24, died from a single gunshot wound and he was unarmed. Greg McKenzie has more details.
Father-to-be Chris Kaba was shot dead by a Metropolitan Police officer through the windscreen of a car in Streatham Hill in South London last September. He was unarmed.
And we're not going to leave until we get justice.
In the weeks that followed, his family campaigned tirelessly. The officer who fired the fatal shot was suspended and the police watchdog launched a homicide investigation. Today, the Independent Office for Police Conduct has referred its investigation to the Crown Prosecution Service.
During the investigation, the officer was advised that they were under criminal investigation for murder, and following the conclusion of our investigation, we have referred a file of evidence to the Crown Prosecution Service to determine whether to charge the officer.
In a statement, the Metropolitan Police said a referral does not indicate that charges will necessarily follow. They added, "We continue to fully support the IOPC investigation. The officer involved remains suspended from duty."
To see that
the Kaba family have told the BBC they welcomed today's decision, saying 6 months on from their son's death, they are now one step closer to receiving justice. Greg Mackenzie, BBC News.
Pope Francis is to remain in hospital for the next few days after being diagnosed with a respiratory infection. His illness has raised questions about whether he'll be able to take part in upcoming Easter services starting this weekend on Palm Sunday. Let's go live to our Europe correspondent Nick Beak, who's outside the hospital in Rome where the Pope is being treated. What's the latest, Nick?
Clive, we've had some positive news from the hospital via the Vatican in the past hour or so, because they say the Pope rested well overnight. He was able to have breakfast, to read the newspapers. He then went to a private chapel they've got here where he received communion and he was able to pray. So this is exactly the sort of news that millions of Catholics across the world were hoping for, among them the US President Joe Biden, who had said that the Pope was in his thoughts and prayers. We know the Pope is 86 years old and does have mobility problems. We see that when he uses a wheelchair. Sometimes he winces in pain as he moves around, but generally he's in good health, and he's had a pretty busy 2023 so far. Of course, he led the funeral service of his predecessor Benedict in January. Then he went to Africa on a trip, and just yesterday he was carrying out duties here in Rome itself. The big question we don't know at the moment, Clive, we don't know the answer to, is the extent to which this will affect his commitments during the Easter period. Of course, such a busy time for him, beginning on Sunday with Palm Sunday. That's something he would surely want to be involved in all the way through Holy Week to the weekend after, and Easter Sunday itself. But we haven't got any indication as yet whether that is going to be possible, but certainly the noises from this particular hospital are positive, Clive.
Nick, thank you. Nick Beak there live in Rome. It is 16 minutes past 1, our top story this lunchtime. UK trials are underway of a potentially life-changing blood test that could affect thousands of cancer patients. And coming up...
Es ist eine große Ehre, heute bei Ihnen zu sein.
King Charles becomes the first British monarch to address the German Parliament.
On Look North this lunchtime, the dentist warning that dental services in the region are unsustainable as Bupa announces the closure of 85 practices. And the Ukrainian band Love and Joy playing venues in the northeast to raise awareness of the war.
Now, the Easter holidays are almost here, and you might remember last year was a bit of a disaster for travellers at airports. A combination of staff shortages and increased passenger numbers led to lengthy queues and delays. Airports and airlines say they do now have enough staff in place, but strike action could mean there's still some disruption. Our transport correspondent Katie Austin has more from Manchester Airport.
Remember this? Last spring, COVID travel rules had been lifted, holidaymakers were ready. Parts of the travel industry were not. Will this year be any better?
Getting passengers away on their flights without a hitch is a complex process that requires several different businesses to work together and have all the right staffing in place.
Providing workers at security is the airport's job. Manchester Airport didn't have enough last Easter, leading to queues. It couldn't reverse pandemic job cuts quickly enough.
In April of this year, I have enough security officers for the busiest day in August.
The boss here is now confident.
This year, our passengers can expect a great experience at Manchester Airport. I can absolutely reassure passengers they won't see the queues that they saw in the summer of 22.
Last year, a shortage of ground handlers was another major issue.
Out here on the airfield, you can see some of the teams helping to get the plane ready and loading the baggage.
Many airlines contract out these services to companies like Swissport. It's brought on 1,500 extra workers, increasing wages and changing rotas to attract people.
There is an absolute war for labour. Of course, there was COVID, and the second point is, of course, Brexit. The labour pool within the UK has to come largely from the UK itself.
They're not the only company which started hiring early.
We actually started recruiting at the end of July. Now, we would not normally start recruiting until January, something like that. So we wanted to get ahead of the game.
While the industry insists it now has the right people in the right places, that doesn't mean a guarantee of no disruption at all.
For example, at the moment in France, there are strikes related to the national pension reforms. which are impacting our flights, because when they close an airport with wildcat strikes and so on, you are going to see disruption. But the vast majority of flights, even during a disruptive period, will run.
Other airlines have cancelled flights because of strike action in Europe, including British Airways, which also axed around 300 flights in advance because of a 10-day strike by some security staff at Heathrow Airport from tomorrow. But the industry and passengers hope they've left last year's level of turbulence behind. Katie Austin, BBC News.
King Charles has addressed the German federal parliament, the Bundestag, on the second day of his first overseas trip as monarch. He spoke often in German about the scourge of war returning to Europe with Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
The unprovoked invasion of Ukraine has inflicted the most unimaginable suffering on so many innocent people. Countless lives have been destroyed. Freedom and human dignity have been trampled in the most brutal way.
Well, our royal correspondent Nick Witchell is in Berlin. Nick, he's speaking in German. That seemed to go down well. It always does with hosts if you speak in their language, but pretty political in referring specifically to Russia and Ukraine in this speech.
Certainly, in parts, yes. He spoke for very nearly 24 minutes, and most of it, as we've heard, most of it was in German. Now, the Bundestag chamber was absolutely packed, and he got a very warm reception. There were serious points about the reconciliation between Germany and the United Kingdom since the Second World War, a process which he said had been terribly important to his late mother. He recalled her state visit in 1965, which really re-established relations between the two countries. And then to Ukraine, as we've heard, talking about the scourge of war returning to Europe. Now, we need to remember that this, of course, was a speech drafted by the British government. But as you say, the language at times from the King was certainly robust, talking about the unprovoked invasion, the unimaginable suffering in Ukraine. He praised Germany for the support, the military support, which it's giving to Ukraine. He recalled that Britain and Germany are the two European countries which are giving the most support. And he went from here to the Ukrainian refugee centre. But back with the speech, there were also lighter moments, jokes in German. He said that we are two countries who can laugh at and with each other. A successful speech, well received.
Okay, Nick, many thanks. Nick Witchell there, live in Berlin. Labour says it would freeze council taxes this year if it was in government as the party launched its campaign for the local elections. Council taxes for millions of households in England will rise on the 1st of April, with many councils due to raise rates by 5%. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, says freezing the current rate could be paid for with funds from an increased windfall tax on energy firms.
Labour would freeze council tax next year using that windfall tax that hasn't been collected. Yes, you heard it right. Not a penny more on your council tax. Not a penny more than the bill you paid last year. And that is a tax cut for the 99% of working people.
New research seen by BBC Newsnight suggests Premier League football clubs may have avoided paying £470 million in tax since 2015. The findings from a group of independent tax experts suggest agents are often paid to represent both players and clubs in negotiations, including transfers, and the practice reduces the amount of tax paid on agents' fees. Ben Chew has that story.
Is something rotten in the state of football when it comes to tax on agents' fees? Research seen by BBC Newsnight suggests Premier League clubs might have avoided hundreds of millions of pounds of tax that ought to be paid when players are signed or move clubs. It hinges on something called dual representation in football transfers. This is where the agent is getting paid by both the player who they represent and also by the club who is buying the player. When a football player pays their agent's fee out of their own pocket, that transaction attracts income tax, national insurance and VAT. But if half of that agent's fee is paid directly by the club, that half of the fee attracts none of these taxes.
So we've been able to use FA published data and some conservative statistical assumptions to estimate that over 3 years, 250 million quid was not paid in tax that should have been paid, and over 7 years, 470 million. So that's almost £500 million quid failed to be paid.
It's estimated that of the £81 million that wasn't paid by the league because of dual representation agent fees in 2021, Manchester City accounted for 10.9 million. This was followed by Manchester United with 10 million and Liverpool with 8.1 million. Newsnight understands HMRC is investigating the use of dual representation by top clubs, but they haven't told us which clubs. And the Public Accounts Committee, which scrutinises HMRC on behalf of Parliament and all of us, they want answers and action too.
Given the information that you and I have seen, I can't see why HMRC isn't clamping down pretty quickly right now. The key thing is we've got our beady eye on both how HMRC are dealing with this, but also this big tax avoidance issue.
All Premier League clubs declined to comment, but the Association of Football Agents insisted that most are genuinely providing services to clubs too, and so dual representation schemes are tax compliant. A top sports barrister agrees.
Well, in most cases, and certainly nearly all the cases I see, there are genuine services provided for clubs that clubs really value. The question in each case is, are those services provided? And does then the transaction reflect that reality? And I genuinely believe in most cases it does.
HMRC said dual representation cannot be assumed to be a tax avoidance scheme. Its use can be tax compliant. However, we carefully scrutinise arrangements between clubs and employees. The key questions which need to be answered: is the beautiful game really paying its fair share of tax? And are the tax authorities on the ball?
Ben Chew of BBC Newsnight there with that report. There are very few of his generation left. Peter Davies is not only a veteran of World War II, he's also 100 years old, with his public service continuing well into old age. His volunteer work at a local primary school began after the death of his wife, and now he's been awarded a British Empire Medal. Here's Graham Satchell.
Shall I do your tie up now, Dad?
Yeah. Just make sure you don't strangle me.
That will be good today.
It's a big day for Peter Davies.
How's that?
He's about to receive the British Empire Medal for services to education.
What do you know? It still fits.
Yeah.
This is something which really is beyond belief. To think that the King has decided that I'm worthy even. There are people out there who are far more worthy than me. But it really is, well, it's once in a lifetime, isn't it? Come on, you'll have to walk a bit quicker than that.
Peter is 100 years old. He's a World War II veteran, a former RAF pilot. For the last 6 years, he's been volunteering at his local school, helping children to read.
The fact it's being done in school, it pleases me no end. The school is the centre of my world these days.
The ceremony is led by the Lord Lieutenant of Cheshire, Lady Redmond.
Congratulations, absolutely fantastic.
Thank you, ma'am.
So pleased to have met you.
If I make a mistake, you get a point. When you read that one, if you made a mistake, I get a point. Right, off you go.
Animals can help us in lots of ways.
Peter comes to school twice a week. Over the years, he's helped hundreds and hundreds of children with their reading.
Could not swim.
He definitely helped me. He was really enthusiastic. Even if you got it wrong, he would be really proud of you no matter what.
He's just amazing for this school and he's done so much for everybody.
Peter started volunteering after his wife Gina died. They'd been married for 72 years.
Life became pointless in some ways. I was lost, I suppose.
What would Gina have made of today, do you think?
Oh, I think Gina would be over the moon. She would be so pleased for me. But it would have been quite something. It's fantastic in its way, Graham. It really is.
Peter has always said he gets more out of volunteering than the children do, that it saved him after his wife died, that the honour is more for them than for him.
I'm just grateful for what I've got, but the kids are the icing on the cake. The children don't realise the effect they have on me. It's a great honour, really is. And, you know, it's been a super day, it really has.
Peter's medal will now take pride of place next to his wife, Gina. Graham Satchell, BBC News.
Nice one, Peter. Now, this is the time of year when we might all start seeing butterflies, but a new study suggests last year's heat wave has caused some common butterfly populations to plummet this spring. The UK Butterfly Monitoring Scheme says a number of the food plants young hungry caterpillars rely on weren't able to survive the heat, along with fewer plants for female butterflies in which to lay their eggs. Oh dear. What's the weather going to be like now, though? Here's Elizabeth Rizzini with the forecast. Hiya.
Hello, thank you, Clive. A hot summer for the butterflies, and it's been a very wet March for many of us, and there's still a couple of days of it to go. No big changes in the general theme that it's unsettled. There is a bit more wet. Very windy weather to come at times, but some rainbows out there today. It's a typical day of sunny spells and some showers. A lot more rainbows to be spotted, I think, as the afternoon wears on. So heavy thundery showers. You're most likely to see, to hear the rumbles of thunder, I think, out towards parts of East Anglia for the rest of the afternoon. The showers will blow through quite quickly, I think, on a brisk southwesterly wind. We could start to see some lines of showers form as well, particularly from, say, Dartmoor all the way up to North London. If you're underneath those lines of showers, you'll certainly know about it, but elsewhere, some sunny spells. And it's a bit dry with fewer showers across Scotland. Temperatures on the mild side, peaking between 12 and 16 Celsius, 17 degrees. Always possible again, most likely out towards East Anglia. But we look towards the southwest overnight tonight, this deepening area of low pressure giving some rather stormy conditions towards the south coast of Wales, the south coast of England in particular. It's mild underneath the cloud and the rain, of course, but it's cooler further north. There will be some clear skies across Scotland, temperatures dipping to low single figures here. But here's our area of low pressure. It's gradually swinging its way northwards and eastwards as we head throughout the day on Friday, gradually filling, so then the winds will start to ease. But tomorrow morning, there could be some gusts of wind towards parts of Devon and Cornwall, the coast especially, of 50 to 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour for exposed headlands. Also true for the Channel Islands. Those strong winds transferring further east as the day wears on, and we'll also see some heavy rain. Localised weather warnings in force. Thundery showers with some brightness for central southern England. It's looking pretty miserable, I'm afraid. Lots of low cloud and feeling cold towards eastern facing coast with now an easterly breeze. Best of the sunshine on Friday. Western Scotland, eastern areas of Northern Ireland, and it's chillier across the board. Temperatures will be a lot lower than today. And we keep that cooler theme as the weekend wears on too. It will be drier on Sunday with high pressure eventually building in, but look, we've still got that trailing weather front with us on Saturday, giving us more outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland, Western Wales and the southwest of England. We've still got that feed of cold air coming in from the North Sea, so again it's really rather cloudy. There'll be some outbreaks of drizzle here, temperatures peaking only between 8 and 12 degrees Celsius. But Sunday, a much more cheery looking day for the second day of April. There's always going to be quite a bit of cloud, I think, for northern and western areas, so Scotland and Northern Ireland, but elsewhere there'll be some sunshine. Temperatures though, nothing special. Highs of 10 to 12 degrees, Clive.
Okay, a little better for butterflies, hopefully. Okay, Elizabeth, thank you. Elizabeth Rizzini there. That's it. So, goodbye from me. Now on BBC One, let's join our news teams where you are. Have a very good afternoon.